constraint-based sketching, auto constrain. So here we have a part. Let me just put a plane onto a sketch plane onto that plane. If I now want to project to that particular plane, let's choose, in this particular case, a body outline. I mean, I don't have to choose a body outline. I mean, I could just, I could project individual edges, but as you can see, there's quite a lot of them to do that. So let me just do a body outline and select the body. So with that body outline, you can see that it's made of many curves which are all connected with only coincident constraints. So if wanting to change the sketch and associate the curves in a logical manner, additional constraints would be needed. For instance, there's a problem if I take this curve center and move, you can see that it's definitely not tangential, and probably it's also not the same size as other curves. As you can see, it's not the same size. What else isn't going to happen? Well, one thing for sure is that we've got all these separate little curves here. So it may well be coincident, but if I move it, it's certainly not as intended to be. It's not intended to be 1, 2, 3, possibly 4 or 5 edges, but rather the intention is just one. So what we can do is we can use auto constrain. So auto constrain is a utility that will look at everything in a sketch plane and see what it can make of the geometry. So we have constraint options. We have coincident, tangent, parallel, perpendicular, equal, radius, and concentric. And then it's really up to you to choose. Of course, you can accept them all, but you may not want to do that. So let's look at parallel. And you see with parallel, it's come up with these sides and these sides and these and these. So that looks quite good. So I'm going to accept parallel. And now they're fixed. So let's also look at potentially tangent. It's found 10 areas of tangency. So I'm going to go with those as well. What else have we got? Let's have a look at equal radius. I know we've got some equal radiuses. And there we've got 4 areas found, and indeed they're all there. So I'm going to accept those as well. If I now come out the tool, let's just see what happens. So if I now, let me now put a size, a dimension on here. Also, I can of course select a line. I can look at the delete menu. So let's just have a look at that. And you can see there are my same size radiuses, my tangencies as well, and some point constraints. Before moving on, I want to add that with auto constrain, there's also the ability to exclude areas from searching. Let me first clean up the display so it's clear. Let me turn off the line color, off constraint tips, off grid, and I'll now view. Okay, now so let's go into auto constrain. I've got equal radius constraint already activated, and it was showing 4 problem areas. So if I now use this exclude problem area by just mouse hovering over any curve, it will show the constraint that it won't make. So let's not make these as equal radius constraint. And then I'll turn to green. But by just mouse hovering, other possible constraint exclusions are highlighted. So accept. Let me show my constraints. If I now there's an equal radius. And if I go to this one, there's equal radius and there's equal radius, which now means that if I now change this to 0.5, these all change to 0.5, and those two in the middle that were excluded remain unchanged. So there is a further way to use the Auto Constrain tool. By selecting it, first of all, selects everything within the sketch. If I don't want that, I can choose to select my own geometry, in which I can either box select, or I can add an individual element, control click, now confirm. And now everything within that selection that is an equal radius will have a constraint applied. So if I now change this to 0.2, there's the result. So now let's change this value of R3. Let me select it, enter a new size 2. Now I hope you noticed that although this sketch is constrained, everything is in light blue, meaning nothing is fully constrained. So as you can see, if I undo, redo, you can see that the full profile is being uniformly offset by just a radius change. Now that's not the intention, but it does show that Auto Constrain can quickly add constraints for many typical sketch changes. So how do we make a change and only get the intended elements to change and not the whole profile? So let's undo. Now I'm going to fix some of these sketch curves. So let me just do a quick box select from left to right, and everything that's fixed is now in purple. I'm going to want one element of the top and the corner curve between the two radii. Okay. Now what you should notice is the curves, curve ends, and the center points have now all become dark blue, which means they're fully constrained. So if I now change this value to 2, only the radiuses change and nothing else in the profile changes. So that's exactly what I wanted to happen. So I can now unfix this line. And if I now want to just go make a simple change just by a drag move, I can just hover over this point, pull up, and you can see it snapping to grids. So that's good. That's a simple way to move. Alternatively, I can just select this, hit the move tool, and again I can move by a drag amount. I can change the value 2.5. I can use the ruler dimension between here and anywhere, really, over here to this point, anywhere. So let's do something usual. So let's say 15. So there's quite a mix of different ways that you can move geometry, only if it's under constrained using the move tool. So now when you're happy with the changes and the sketch is finished, what we can do is if we come out of the sketch by, let's say, going to 3D mode, and before I do this, notice that this is in a layout sketch mode, which will mean that when the sketch closes, it won't form a face automatically. So let's now enter 3D mode, key D. Now I have now I'm back out. I'm not going to show my constraints anymore. I'm not even going to show my line colors either. But to get a face, I will open the sketch and I will use this command, use for 3D. So this will now create the face, but it will retain the sketch and also the sketch constraints. So let's use 3D. There you have a face. Let's move the face. Pull and create a body.